coming up. What's happening, Eagle fans? Welcome to the debut episode of Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff. I want to thank you as the audience for hopefully coming over. I know that I gave you guys very short notice that I'd be starting on YouTube, other than the fact that I was, talking about this for months. But we are here. We are here live, and I'm going to say we. Now you can put a voice with the name. So I'm Geoff, and those of you familiar with the podcast that's been going on for over 2 years, here's Matt. So now you get to see our beautiful mugs every show. I don't know if that's going to hurt the ratings or enhance them.
Definitely.
Either way, you don't have a choice in the matter. But just what I want to do before I give Matt a full intro here and let him talk a little bit is I want to give you a little bit of background about the show, because the majority of people tuning in are going to be like, what the heck is this? And who are you guys? So again, my name is Geoff. I started this podcast, Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff, just over 2 years ago, and it was just audio. So it was on all your main, podcasting platforms like Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, any of them. It was basically on every single one. So if you haven't heard of us from there, then this podcast from there, then now we're launching on YouTube, which is what I always wanted to do, because I always wanted to have a goal, even when I was doing the audio, was to somehow get fan interaction. This platform obviously allows me to do that, us to do that, to engage with you, fellow Eagle fans, and anyone else who wants to jump in. Some Cowboy fan wants to jump in here and take some heat. We're going to bring that too. Let me tell you. But we welcome any and all. So if you're just tuning in for the first time, I don't expect to have many viewers right now. Again, we're launching this brand new. But hey, even if you're just browsing around today and you come across this live program, say hello, introduce yourself, join in the commentary. But like I said, I'm not expecting much today, other than just to introduce ourselves, talk about the Eagles, and we're going to do this every week. May not be all of us, may not be, Matt, a couple of guests, but I'm going to try to get at least a few guests in line. And definitely I have guests lined up when we play NFC East opponents. And you're going to meet one representative later on who's going to join us from the Commanders. So, and he's, Johnny, those of you who listen to the podcast in the past will know Johnny as well. So you get to know Matt now, and myself, Johnny, and many guests coming down the road, in the future. So welcome to the podcast. A little bit about me. So I became an Eagles fan when I was about 8-9 years old. So, and now I'm 51. So we're going at 40 plus years of Eagles fanaticism, history, and knowledge. I played football myself, not professionally, but I know the game, I know the sport, and so I have a lot up here with the Eagles knowledge, and so I like to make sure that the content you're going to receive is credible, from that perspective. So I can't go back much further than I think Jaworski was the first quarterback. So we're talking early 80s when I started as an Eagle fan. Guys like Harold Carmichael, Bill Berge, Wilbur Montgomery, Jerry Robinson. Those are the guys I like. Herman Edwards, Ryan L. Young. Those guys, that was kind of like the first Eagles players then when I started watching the team, just to give you some perspective. And Matt is pretty close to that. We'll let him talk in a minute, but yeah, and and I'm from Connecticut, so living in enemy territory, Giants and Patriot country, and obviously Cowboy fans are everywhere. So I was kind of like the Lone Ranger, other than really Matt. Matt and I, grew up in Connecticut, and we had to deal with why do you like an Eagles? What the hell are you rooting for the Eagles for? So we heard all of that growing up, and plus they stunk for a long time. So anyway, so that's really the idea behind the podcast, is that you're going to get a real fan's perspective. I'm not tied to the Eagles. I don't work for the Eagles. I don't work for any company. I don't work for the media. It's just to give you a well-rounded view of the Eagles, my opinion, talk birds. That's what we're going to do. We're going to talk birds. So with that being said, Matt, introduce yourself.
Yeah, so glad to see everybody, hear everybody, and be here for this first inaugural show as we move over from the podcast that you may have been familiar with over to a new media platform. So this is pretty cool stuff that we're talking about here. So thanks, Geoff, for leading the way and keeping me on as a guest. If you guys have heard any of my participation before, you know I am a huge Eagles fan as well. I did get started probably a few years after Geoff. You know, I hated football years ago. Thought it was a waste of time. Dad and Geoff would be watching TV all day Sunday, and I'm like, what the hell? This is just a gigantic waste of time. Let's go outside and like throw a football or do something else. And so I really ignored football until, you know, Geoff's nonstop Eagles this, Dick Vermeil this, Dick Vermeil that, Ron Jaworski, Wilbert Montgomery. I'm like, all right, fine. Let me see what the hell this is all about. And so I got into football exactly when Randall Cunningham was a rookie. I had no idea what Geoff was talking about. He's like, oh, he's a platoon. They're going to platoon him. And, you know, I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying to learn the game. And I'm like, oh, Jaws is in for a couple series or a couple downs. And then here comes Randall on third down and, you know, all this stuff. So Cunningham's sophomore year, which I believe is 1988, is when I would wake up and just look forward to those games with Geoff. And just, you know, Cunningham made everything so super exciting back then.
Yeah, he was incredible.
Yeah, and then been diehard ever since then. So, you know, if that's 1988, I am 48 years old now. So we're talking over
1 year shy of 100 years of football knowledge this channel will be bringing you.
Yeah, and you know, like Geoff said, the background is we're not affiliated. We don't get paid by anybody. We're just diehard Philadelphia football fans. We know the history. We know it's a hobby that's like if you could make your job your hobby, that's what everyone always advises. Like we do this stuff without even having to work at it. Like I'm always thinking Eagles football. It doesn't matter what time of the year it is. You know, we do just as many conversations in the off season as we do during the weeks of the football season, and it's never that far away from the first thing in my mind. So. It's very cool. The other thing I was thinking about, Geoff, that you kind of articulated with us being from Connecticut, we are outside that local Philadelphia market, which gives us a pretty independent viewpoint of being diehard. We know what Philly's all about. We spent plenty of time there both through our lives. I attended college just a little bit west of there in York, Pennsylvania. And literally, I think that was the choice that made me go to York was they get Eagles games live on Fox 45. So why would I choose anywhere else? I'm going to York. So we're familiar with the fan base. We know some of the political savvy that happens with the radio programs and what the general vibe is in Philly, but it's neat to be outside of there with the rest of the Philadelphia Eagles nation that can kind of have an open ear for all sides of Philly fanatics. So it's fantastic to be here and get started, but that's us in a nutshell. So I'll throw that back to you, Geoff, and we can get started on our.
Yeah, well, I thought that was a great point you just brought up, the fact that the outside Philadelphia perspective, but yet we know Philly. You know, I've always had this like sixth sense. Like whenever I go to Philly, I feel like I'm home, and I've never lived in Philly. But every time I drive down there, I feel like I'm home.
We don't have that Philadelphia, Pennsylvania accent. We still got this New England twang kind of going on. But yeah, you won't hear us say water.
No waters or costs. No, we're not from Boston.
But we love it.
We hate Boston, as a matter of fact, or at least I do. The city's great, but all the teams suck. Yeah, so no, that's a great point. And I also think that, and I've always thought this, is that not that Eagle fans are spoiled because they live in Philly, because I'm not going to ever say that, but I don't know if they really fully understand when you're not from Philly and you're a 40 some odd, we talked about how many years we've been fans. Every time we get the opportunity to go down and watch a game in Philly and hang out with 70,000 other Eagle fans,
awesome.
It's just an amazing feeling.
No better feeling in the world, man.
It's just awesome. And it was highlighted in the 2017 run when I'm like, I mean, those tickets were ridiculously expensive to get the NFC Championship game. And again, so it's even more. You don't got to worry about the ticket price. But when you're coming from Matt's in Virginia now. I'm in Connecticut. When you're making the drive, you got to stay in a hotel. So gas on top of hotel before you even get to the game, right? And I was procrastinating that week of the game. I'm like, man, we got to go. We got to be there. We got to be there.
Yeah. And I thought you were crazy.
And Matt thought I was crazy when the tickets were like $450 at the beginning of the week.
Yeah, I was like, invest the money, and in 10 years we can buy season tickets.
Yeah. So they were like, and I remember watching this because I was watching like a hawk every day because I was like, my mind was just, playing the old, the devil and the angel. Like not so much the devil, maybe some right analogy, but like two sides of my brain talking to each other. Nah, it's too expensive. Jeff, you got to be there. Too expensive. Jeff, you got to be there. And as I'm doing that in my head, each day is passing, and it's what the seats again, nosebleeds. Not good seats. I'm talking about up, way up. $450 a piece, and that was like on Monday before the game, and then it got to like Wednesday, and they were like $600 a piece, and they just kept incrementally growing up with each day that I procrastinating, hitting the purchase. So finally, I'm like talking to people, my friends on Facebook and stuff, and just having conversations on the phone. They're like, Jeff, man, fear of missing out. You only live once. I'm like, yeah, I know, but this is going to put a dent in the wallet. So anyway, long story short, on that Friday, I think, I called Matt and I said, Matt, dude, can you go if I get tickets? And Matt's, again, like you was just saying, like, dude, it's wicked expensive, man. And I don't have the time to really help you in this. And this is all your call. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And so I was like, man, we got to go. We just got to go. Anyway, ended up purchasing the tickets. And the reason why I bring it up is we were there to see the Nick Foles magic. That game against Minnesota. The Eagles were down early, gave the touchdown the first drive. And then once what's his name made that pick, Patrick Robinson made that interception with the, with Howie Long's son there. What's his name? Chris Long. Not hitting the elbow just enough so he didn't get enough mustard on that pass. And Robinson makes that awesome return back. The place went freaking ballistic. And then from there, Nick Foles and that offense just took over the game. And we saw the whole coronation, the whole party atmosphere, the last home game that season of what would eventually be their Super Bowl season. And yeah, so that was, I won't even say how much I spent on the tickets, but it was a lot. And I appreciate it. Become priceless after a certain time, and to be there with Matt, to experience all that, you can't beat it. You can't put a price on that stuff.
No.
So let's talk birds. Before I do, we're going to have, let me just check. I'm getting some text, and I was this big guest I'm going to be bringing on here shortly, and he might be trying to get a hold of me. All right. It looks like Johnny may not be joining us. I don't have time to really respond back to him right now, but he is vacationing down with his family, so he was going to try to squeeze some time in. He wants to know if we could do a show again this coming week or next. So we'll figure that out later. So it looks like Johnny won't be joining us today, but that's fine. We got plenty to talk about, and we don't want to really Commander fan on the first episode of Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Jeff. He's a friend of the podcast, so if he's somehow able to still join us, we'll bring him on.
We can take care of the Commanders in about 10 seconds right now, okay? Howie completely fleeced them for Jahan Dotson. Everyone's pissed off locally about it. They're wondering what the hell. We had all this positive changeover going from Ron Rivera and miserable Mondays to Dan Quinn in a new era, and now all of a sudden they're getting rid of their best wide receiver and they're giving them to an NFC East opponent, and they're kind of like they were running. Right? They're like getting started in the race. They're like, we have a chance this year. And all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute. What the hell was that? What are you doing?
You know what? It's like there needs to be like Howie's ringtone whenever he calls another GM should be like the Jaws theme.
Yeah.
Like you just know you're going to be had.
Yeah. If I'm an owner on a team and Howie calls, I'll be telling my GM, you never answer that call the first time. Like if it's Howie's number, get everybody together, get all your personnel managers together, and just start thinking through what are the what ifs that Howie might be calling about, so you're actually prepared. Because it seems like Howie, he must be a master diplomat, because he's able to continue making these excellent moves the last 3 years or so. And they don't always work out, but man, he's really done a masterful job the last 3 years.
Well, you know this about Howie. Any player on other teams that are impactful against the Eagles, he remembers those guys. Because Dotson is killing the Eagles.
Yep.
In the red zone especially. And I think he's had a 100-yard game already against the Eagles. Of course, McLaren kills the Eagles too, but the fact that he had a shot to get, and we need a number 3. Nobody stepped up during all of training camp to capture that 3 slot, and to come in now and bring in Dotson, experienced guy, young, former first-round pick, a lot of talent there, and a guy that's deadly in the red zone. Like, I don't know how much he'll do between the 20s, but inside the red zone.
Yeah, he'll do plenty. He's playing. Dotson is now going to a multifaceted offense. Yeah, that is run by Kellen Moore, has a lot of experience, and we'll talk about this more as we get into the show. But just the number of chess pieces now that are on the field for offense, I don't even think he's just going to be dedicated to the slot. I think they're going to move all 3 of those guys all over the field at all times. So can you imagine AJ Brown going against like the nickel guy, and just rotating through all these different opportunities to get guys on the outside, on the inside for certain plays and downs and distances? I mean, it's going to be insane. And the fact that he's on a rookie deal and still has 2 more years to go is insane. That's the Howie method, right? Like, I don't want to pay a lot of money, but I want supreme talent. And then we'll talk about signing guys long-term before they hit that free agent market. Yeah. When he wants to. So just amazing job by Howie.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember texting you thinking the Eagles just got, Johan Dotson for a 5th-round pick, right? Or third round pick. Third round pick.
We gave up 3rd, but we're getting a 5th.
We're getting a 5th back.
Yeah. So
highway robbery.
Keep giving me money in my pocket. I like it.
Yeah. So that he should fit right in. Him and AJ are already working out together. They seem to hit it right off. So, what better wide receiver to learn from than AJ Brown, who's really becoming a leader on this team. It's so nice to have a guy that's good as him without the TO attitude. Now, there are some times when he gets, you could see I don't know. He said his side of it is that he's just competitive and it's not me. I think there's a little tiny bit of that in AJ, but certainly not to the extent of like what T.O. had, where it was a team cancer. This guy seems like really want to take people under his wing and help the younger players and all that kind of thing.
To be that good, you've got to have some of that attitude. But AJ, it's so funny because he was part of like that speculation of dissension in the locker room last year. And so he got to the point last year where he was like, I'm not talking to y'all anymore because you're spinning all my words away. And I heard him talk more in this preseason than I've heard him at any time before. So I don't know what changed there. I don't know if the local media has been like, let's let AJ be AJ and not be pressing him with kind of speculative questions and stuff, because he's talked a lot about everything. He talked about his trip to Brazil just yesterday, but he seems very happy and he seems very willing to be talking to the media now, which was not the case 6 months ago.
Yeah, I think he's taking much more of a leadership role. When you got a guy like Kelsey who's stepping out, and Fletcher on the defensive side, those are 2 all-time Eagle greats, and they're gone. And they brought a lot of leadership on both sides of the ball on this team. And that's something that the Eagles will be fighting through this year, because they're not going to have those guys when the chips are down to give those inspirational speeches or take these guys aside and, help them get their heads back on straight. You need other leaders to emerge, and I think AJ Brown is definitely one of those guys that seems to have stepped up in that leadership role for the team. I think that's important, and it'll be interesting to see who takes that role on the defensive side. The guy that I wrongfully predicted, however, is making big strides this year. Finally, the guy that I predicted on my audio podcast when they drafted Nakobe Dean, I said in 3 years, this guy will be the leader of the defense. Now, that prediction has been horribly wrong the past couple years. But this season, there's a lot of, people that are in the know and watching practices are saying that Nakobe Dean has been the best defensive player on the field during training camp this year. So that's some high praise. Now, we got to see it in games. But finally, Nakobe Dean, the guy that Matt and I have been very critical of in our podcasts and past podcasts, which, by the way, quick plug, any of those 2 years plus of podcasts that I'm keep referring to are on this YouTube channel. So you can go back and fact check us if you wish. It's all on there. So, we can't say, we can't get away with that stuff. It's on there. But we were critical of Nakobe Dean, and for rightful reasons. I mean, he was very frustrating. A lot of times it was because he was injured. But when we was on the field, Matt and I, neither one of us, I don't want to speak for you, Matt, but I mean, you have spoken about it, so that's why I know. We didn't see anything. I was like, man, I don't know about this guy. Like, I was having doubts, and I was high on Nakobe Dean, especially for his leadership. So I'm very anxious and going to be paying a lot of attention to see how he does now that he's going to be a starter, and cross his fingers that he stays healthy. He's still undersized, but he knows that, and he's been undersized the whole career. So he was successful all the way through, and even in college, he was an impactful player. I still think he could do that in the NFL. So I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on Nakobe Dean before we kind of dive into the
well, no, I think Nakobe's a smart player, and I think his rookie year was with Jonathan Gannon. His second year is the messed up Philly defense that was last year between Desai and Matt Patricia, and the whole thing seemed to be disassembling itself all around. But we were waiting to see where's the splash play? As you develop in your first 3 years, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to be misreading things, but you're usually balancing those out. The players that are going to become good players usually have some splash plays in there. And when Nick Morrow is making splash plays occasionally and they're getting smoked in other ways, but Nakobe Dean just seems to be consistently washed away, and you don't really get anything from him, or he's on the sidelines, it's like, where are you going? So I think where I'm getting with this point is Vic Fangio is going to have, it will probably take, I guess, I'm going to guess about 6 weeks for Vic Fangio to get this defense actually all moving and starting to click together. They're very young. They've got a lot of exciting players to be looking to try to see where they're going to improve as they go. But as these pieces fit together, I think the coaching will be dramatically different than what they've had with both Gannon and the coaches that they had last year. Because Vic knows, he's one of those guys that knows how to take advantage of the player's ability. And instead of forcing a cog into, we need a middle linebacker and Dean's the guy, so shove him in the middle linebacker role, I think you'll see Nakobe Dean coming in for very specific plays for those linebacker positions. So if it's a linebacker blitz, I would bet you would see a lot of blitzes this year from Nakobe Dean, because he's fast, he can run, he can move around, and if he can win against running backs, when he's blitzing or providing pressure, I think you'll see a lot of that. As far as the run stopping, I don't know. I think that's the most important thing we're all waiting for is can he shed a block?
Hold up. Yeah.
Can he shed a block or get there first so that it's just him and the running back instead of just getting kind of stiff-armed out of the way. We'll see. He's still got a good ceiling on him, right? So he's one of the players we talked about when we closed out last season about, well, what are their windows, right? Like, where are these players? What do we need to see from some of them? And why is this year going to be so important? Whether that window stays open, or does it squeeze down a little bit, or does it close itself off completely? So he's one to watch for sure.
I tell you what, technically I could still be right because this is year 3. So if he does have a breakout season, maybe by the end of the year, he is that defensive leader. So I may still, it's a hair of a thread of chance of still being right in my prediction. But he's going to finally be starting this year, and right now, not going to he's healthy. One of the plays that kind of really made me go, wow, yeah, like that shows his ability, is the second preseason game. Who they play that week? think it was Baltimore, maybe.
I think Ravens second game. Yeah. That's the only one I saw the preseason. Actually, I missed the other ones.
I think it was game 2. But anyway, so you may have seen this play that I'm talking about. So he blitzes the quarterback, doesn't get there, but forces him to do a quick out to the running back, or the flanker wide receiver. I think it might have been a flank wide receiver. Throws it quickly out to him after being pressured by Dean on the blitz, and the guy makes I think it was Bradbury actually who missed the tackle. So the guy who gets about 7 or 8 yards past Bradbury, guess who made the tackle on that play?
Kobe Dean.
I don't know if you saw that play, Matt, that I'm referencing.
No, I saw the whole Ravens game.
Yeah, so maybe it was the Ravens game.
Probably Ravens or Patriots. Maybe it was the Patriots game.
You know what? It might have been the Patriots game. I think it was the Patriots game. Yeah. So, but that showed me a lot. That showed me effort. You know, the fact that he got in on the blitz and forced the throw to begin with, and then he's the one that made the backside tackle after the missed tackle by Bradbury and stopped the bigger gain. That showed me a lot. That was like, yeah, that's the Nakobe Dean that I was always high on. So, yeah, I think it's really with him. He just has to stay healthy. He's got to prove they can be healthy. All right. Did you have something else to say?
No, we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So we kind of started getting into defense. We're going to save the rest of the defensive talk for a few minutes later here. The 53-man roster in general, Matt, do you have any thoughts, comments? Anybody that was cut that you wish that they had not cut? Anyone that you were hoping they made the team that did make the team? Any thoughts on the 53-man roster?
No, it actually struck me as like no surprises. You know, I was reading about some of the guys like Fred Johnson that are interesting stories. You know, University of Stoutland product who is very honest and accountable in some of the most recent interviews I saw. So there's some unique stories for the fringe players that just made the bubble, but everything else I thought was no surprises. You know, I think everyone was watching probably the quarterback situation, not Hurts, but like, I think most people would agree Kenny Pickett was not impressive at all. And Tanner McKee just always looks, Tanner McKee always looks impressive. He looked impressive last year as a rookie.
Poised.
Yeah. And he's tall. He's confident. Yeah. He speaks fluent Spanish, by the way. I had no idea. In his last video, the Eagles, he was speaking fluent Spanish.
Really?
But that guy looks like he can play, right? Like, the game's not too big. He doesn't look like he's in a panic. He looks very decisive.
He hangs in there and takes hits too.
Yeah, he takes hits. He delivers the football on time and with accuracy.
So accurate.
Exciting. So I think that was the only thing I was looking at was like, oh my God, please don't get rid of McKee just because you traded for Kenny Pickett. Like, I'm hoping that they can look at that. And I trust Howie for that. You know, he didn't hang on to Carson Wentz when he tanked. He got rid of him. Yeah. So I think he's hanging on to I think it's not a bad decision to bring Pickett in, but Pickett has now demonstrated against some vanilla defenses that he's really not that great.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was rooting for Pickett. He's actually an Eagles fan. He grew up around the area.
Yeah.
Here's my take, and this is what I said on my podcast a couple weeks ago, is I really think that cosmetically, the Eagles show Pickett as their number 2. But I think behind closed doors, they consider McKee number 2. Like, I think if Hurts, knock on wood, misses a lot of time this season, misses 2 or 3 games in a row, I don't think they're going to Pickett.
I hope.
I think they're going to McKee. Maybe they'll give Pickett a game, but he's going to have a short leash, I think. And I really think, I mean, they have to see what we're seeing. These guys are football coaches. You know, of course, we had that conversation before, like, what the hell are you guys doing, Eagles? We see it. What the hell? But they have to see it. I mean, the guy has outplayed Pickett, and he's playing with 3rd and 4th string guys, not 2nd string.
And sometimes, you know, if that's, you know, if you're not out there with A.J. Brown and some of these guys, then that makes a difference. But you've seen our 2nd stringers get beyond defensive backs and the ball short, you know, or the ball's behind. Like, I've never seen a quarterback throw more contested balls on every throw when the wide receiver is wide open. So it's like, I don't know why.
Yeah.
But and maybe that can come with some QB coaching, you know, over this next year. But McKee, with the same receivers, is throwing it over their shoulder, run to the catch, and it's a completely different game. So
yeah, I saw Pickett in the Patriot game. This was definitely the Patriot game, I believe. Excuse me, when he John Ross, it was early in the game, first quarter or something. John Ross had his guy beat by 6-7 yards, and he overthrew him. Like,
you're right.
Not even close. I'm like,
way beyond, or it's way short, and he doesn't seem to be able to dial that in. And you look at players like Jaden Daniels. You may not have seen much, but I've seen a lot of preseason footage of him. And some of those quarterbacks that just have that talent are able to throw that ball out there and let it drop into the basket. So, yeah. Pickett. I don't know. I'm hoping. I never hope for somebody to get injured, but I'm hoping we're able to move Pickett off the roster when somebody's desperate for a quarterback.
I think that's how he's gonna. That's why they want to keep number 2 again. Cosmetically, they want people to think that Eagles.
Promote him. He's
a guy, and I think he gets any offer at trade deadline. I don't think he'll let Pickett go. Get something back.
So that's it. That was the only thing I really cared about. Bradbury was the other guy. Were they going to keep Bradbury or let him go? And I think it's almost the same situation. I think he stays on the roster, and then if somebody gets desperate at cornerback or safety, they've got a piece that they can move. But it's time to let the young guys play, and I'm hoping Vic Fangio stays around for about 3 good years before he retires. I know he's getting closer and closer, but they got a lot of youthful talent, I think, on this team that just needs experience and a good coach to learn from. So once they got that, and we'll talk more about the D later, but those were the 2 spots that I thought, like, oh, who are they going to keep? Are they going to keep Bradbury? Are they going to keep Pickett? Everyone else, I thought everything else just fell into place and it made sense.
Yeah. The one guy that I was rooting for, I mentioned on my podcast that I was hoping to make the team because he just came right off the tape to me, was Thomas Booker. That guy, every time he came in a game, and normally it was late, like he was like a guy that was like, I know they brought him on the practice squad last year, never played for the Eagles, but it was on the practice squad. Brought him back again this year, another long shot at camp. But dude, that guy, every time he was in there, he's pushing that offensive guard back in the quarterback's face almost every down. I was kept watching him because at first I'm like, who the hell is this 59 guy? Like I didn't know who he even was. And I'm like, 59. I had to go back. I went on the computer and I'm like, who the hell is number 59? Oh, Thomas Booker. And I'm like, where the heck is Thomas? I didn't even hear his name last year. Because again, he was on the practice squad. But I'm like, and then I watched every single preseason game from that point on and just watched him when he came into the game. And he dominated almost every snap. And I'm like, this guy better make the team. He's out there busting his ass.
Yeah.
And he made the team. So I was very happy. And I was hopeful that he would make the team. And I'm actually hoping this guy, I'd love him to see him on the field against starters because he was dominating the second and third string guys he was against. I mean, completely dominating. Like he was a force. I'm like, how's this guy not an NFL team? So that's how impressive he was. So we'll see if he makes if he actually gets into the games. But anyway, for depth, I'm very happy he's on the team.
Yeah, and he's a disruptive player, right? At the very least, he's disruptive.
That's what I mean. He's at least pushing the dude's back in the face. Cause the pocket to collapse.
Yeah, and one other name that stood out because he was making all sorts of plays in preseason and he didn't make the roster was Jenkins, the tight end.
Yeah.
Hit a ton of catches in third, fourth quarter games with McKee and all that stuff, but like he caught everything that went his way. I didn't see him drop a pass I
think it hurt late in that last preseason game, right? I think
So I know they got him back on the practice squad, so he's still an Eagle.
They did. Yeah. He was not claimed because that was one of the surprising cuts. Because the Eagles decided to keep just 2 tight ends.
Yeah. Which will be interesting because Calcaterra, it'll be interesting to see what he can do now because he came out of college kind of busted up as well. And
his best game was the game we were at.
Yeah. And Goddard
caught like a 40-yard bomb.
Yeah. And Goddard's not a very healthy guy either.
Yeah.
He's had trouble staying on the field. So it'd be interesting to see what Calcaterra can do this year as the number 2 guy. And they were able to bring back Jack Stoll for the practice squad too. So they got experience with them on the team. They'll just be hanging out on the practice squad until Goddard goes down.
Stoll's a guy he's not really going to, he's a good possession guy. He's never going to break tackle or anything, but he's a good possession guy. He's got decent hands, but he's a really good blocker. So he's good for those run formations out of the 2 tight end, especially 2 tight end formats there. So,
surprises.
Yeah, so I think that's all I got to talk about on the 53-man roster. No one else really that I can think of. Oh, McCollum, the safety.
The safety, yeah.
He played really well, so I was glad he made the team. I don't think it's surprising anybody made it, but I'm glad he made it.
Yeah, he's the guy that's familiar with Vic Fangio's defense.
Yeah.
Right? Came over from the Broncos or the Dolphins.
He played well. He had a couple picks in preseason, so I was happy to see him make it. I can't think anybody else I was surprised about. Not really. I was kind of rooting for Gates, but that's the guy they brought back the preseason or to the practice squad. That guy looked pretty impressive when I saw him blocking. Plus, I just like his last name, Gates. Reminds me of like Link Gates, the hockey player. Not that has anything to do with football, but
no,
I don't even think he spells the name right the same way. So it's really it's not much to really go with, but I was kind of rooting for him. All right, so let's go to the offense, and I want to just kind of get just generally what excites you about the offense. I think we're in agreement that there's a lot of exciting things about this offense, but what's anything specific that you're looking forward to seeing? And then we'll talk about the defense also, but offensively, so things that excite you that you can't wait to kind of see and see how players that you're excited about, or concerns. So both sides of the coin there.
I think I only have one concern, but I'll get to that at the end. So this should be one of the top scoring offenses in the NFL. Period. Right? It should be. The talent, as far as
we have an offensive coordinator now, not a guy that was like
right. So that's the key thing. Even before we get to Kellen Moore, though, the talent on the roster for all of our starters is amazing. Like I will put all of our starting players against anybody else's NFL team across the board. And I would say we would at least be competitive if we don't have the advantage there, right? So whether you want to argue Mahomes and Prescott are better than Hurts, that's fine, but they're in the same category. There's no drop off of a tier there. So we're at least competitive at every position. And in a lot of places, we're probably going to win the advantage there. So now when you take that talent and you've got a guy like Kellen Moore, who has been able to do a lot with a less talented roster, whether he's been at Dallas or San Diego before they were the Chargers, LA Chargers. And then you think about, wow, okay, what's Howie doing signing a running back for the first time ever? And we get Saquon on a good deal for a running back, and then Kellen Moore coming over, who in his offenses, whether he was with Zeke early on, Ezekiel and Dallas, when he was all pro, and then the Austin Eckler experience with the Chargers the whole time Kellen Moore was there. I'm like, wow, that's enticing to think about. What are you going to do with Saquon Barkley? So and I think, if you look at the way Saquon has had to run with the Giants, it's here's the ball, go be Barry Sanders or Bo Jackson and try your best to not get injured through this crappy offensive line.
Yeah, when the whole defense is focused on you too, because there's nobody else.
Everyone's focused on him. And here, I think Saquon's going to be healthy because he's going to have so many different options to play with. And Kellen Moore is going to take advantage of him as a chess piece too, and move him all over the field and all this stuff. So I just think that the sky is absolutely the limit. Like space is the limit for this offense, right? Yeah. And which is fantastic because that's going to buy a lot of time for the defense to get itself together. So with all that being said, and I'm not going to go through all the player positions, I'm going to assume we're talking to a educated fan base out there that knows the players. So the rest of it comes down to my one concern, and that's Jalen Hurts, right? You got all the pressure in the world on you to prove that you are what we've seen. Everyone has seen samples of Hurts playing incredible football, throwing the ball on time, over the basket. A.J. Brown has two guys draping on him. It doesn't matter. The ball's right there, right? We've seen those plays, and we've seen it a lot. It's not like, it's just been flashes. We've seen him have very good seasons, but then it's those last 6 games of last season that were a big concern, right? Yeah. Where he's just seemed to have been, oh my God, I don't know what I'm looking at. And so let me just try to throw it to AJ, but you're 3 seconds past the time that you should have thrown the ball. And now it's just another interception, right? So that's my concern. And it's all on Jalen Hurts. Now, the funny thing is in training camp, he seems to have had an incredible training camp, very accurate. He looks lighter, by the way. So I don't know. I don't know what's changed with his conditioning, but you remember we used to talk about this all the time with Donovan McNabb. McNabb was a much
he was like working out too much. He got too muscle bound.
He got too muscle bound, and I guess he was trying to avoid injuries. And unfortunately, McNabb had the broken ankle that one year and all that stuff. And it's like, okay, but like you lost so much mobility and just even his arm motion. It just seems like the muscles are getting in the way, right?
Yeah.
So Hurts seemed to be a little bit beefy compared to the way he looks right now.
Yeah. Well, I think he pays more attention to his body than McNabb did. I don't think McNabb really was ever other than just he wanted to get bigger for some reason. I think he just wanted to be able to absorb the hits more because he had the arm strength even when he was thinner. That was never a problem. But one thing about Hurts is, did your screen freeze? I think you did. I don't know if you can hear me, Matt, but your screen froze. So if you come back, we'll bring it back on. But what I was going to mention about Hurts is my biggest issue with him has always been him running to the right. He'd immediately sense pressure and then escape to the right. And when you do that, you cut off half of the field. And, you make the defense's job a lot easier when you cut half the field off. So that was always my biggest criticism of Hurts. And so, hey, he's back. So can you hear me, Matt? All right. Yeah. You froze. And so I just went on with what I was my biggest concern, which has always been the same with Hurts is when he just senses pressure that might not even be there and immediately rolls off to the right, cuts off half of the field, and then makes some kind of like Houdini pass attempt on the sideline. And most 90% of the time it's incomplete. That is what the 1 year he stopped doing that, they went to the Super Bowl, but he reverted back to that habit last year again. And I'm hoping with Kellen Moore, because nobody obviously told him Hurts about that last year or tried to reinforce that he was doing that again. But again, when you have a buddy as your head coach, as your offensive coordinator, not the head coach, but the offensive coordinator was his buddy from college and from high school. He's not, I guess he just never told Hurts about it, and Hurts forgot about it and kept doing it again. Because that just kills every play. Yeah, 1 out of 15, he'll make, one of the wide receivers more than even his throw. But sometimes he makes a good throw too, don't get me wrong. Will make a great sideline catch. But the 14 are going to be incomplete because it makes the defense's job so much easier when you cut off half the field because he immediately takes the play over to the right. The entire routes are all done at that point. Then it's just, okay, try to get open by running different routes now. The whole play is just destroyed. And he does way too much. He ruins so many plays by doing that. That's always been my biggest criticism of him. The other stuff he's gotten better at. His accuracy's gotten better. All of that is always, the other issues that he's had has gotten much better. But that, he still falls into that. I'm just going to rush out to the right of every time. I really hope Kellen Moore hammers that home to that he needs to stop doing that. Hang in there. You got a great line. Move forward. Do the Tom Brady in the pocket. Move forward. Move the right. Move the left.
And then run.
Then run if you have to.
Then run.
Don't
you already got 8 yards.
Yeah, because that's the other thing. Your protection is gone too when you run off to the right.
Yep.
Then everyone's who's supposed to be protecting this guy that way and this guy that way. Once you take off to the right, the offensive line doesn't know where the heck you are. They still think you're there.
Yep.
So the whole play just gets wiped out. It's so frustrating. That is the most frustrating thing watching this offense, especially when they have all this ability and all this talent on the team. So that's my biggest issue. So that's my other concern. Probably my primary concern is also Hurts. I think Juergens is going to do fine at center. I'm not really that concerned about him. We'll see. Maybe he's going to be maybe there will be a huge fall off. I don't think there is going to be a huge fall off.
Yeah. Kelsey's a legend, right? So, but I have all my close football friends. I just got asked this at work, like, hey, how do you think the Eagles are going to do? And I think the Eagles will be in the Final Four, right? I absolutely believe the Eagles will be in the Final Four. And they're like, really? Even without Kelsey? And I'm like, yeah. Here's the deal. They prepared for Kelsey's departure 2 years ago by getting Cam Juergens out there.
Yeah, who was actually handpicked in a sense by Kelsey himself.
Yep. And Cam Juergens is the same prototype of player as Kelsey. He can move, he can block. I expect to see Juergens 20 yards down the field making the same types of blocks we saw Kelsey do. He doesn't have the wisdom or the smarts or experience yet, but it took Kelsey, 15 years to develop that stuff. So, I'm not too worried about it either. Historically speaking, in the NFL, it's much easier to replace a center and not go backwards than it is with a left tackle, right? So the tackles are still like the key cogs. Those are the real hard diamonds in the rough. Kelsey was a diamond in the rough. Jurgens, Kelsey was an all-star, but Jurgens was a high round draft pick, right? 3 rounds higher than Kelsey was taken. So the boy can play. He's got experience because they put him in at guard,
And he did pretty well. It's not even a position he plays. And he did okay last year. It's not like he was burnt much, No,
so whether or not they can execute the tush push, not sure. Maybe Kelsey had a lot to do with that, but I'm not tush push,
that may not be as effective. We'll see. But I think most of that, it definitely is Kelsey, no doubt, is a big part of it. So the other parts hurts. And now you got, you got probably the guy with the strongest quads pushing the guy with the second strongest quads in the NFL, because you got Hurts who leg presses like 500 pounds. And I think Barkley does like 550 pounds. So you have 2 strong leg guys doing that, helping that push over the line. And that probably more than compensates for the loss of Kelsey. But we'll see. They may not be as effective. I really wish, and I had somebody mention this to me the other day, the Eagles should do some like fake tush pushes and just, throw it out to Barkley or do it. I'm like, yeah, they do it occasionally, like very rarely.
Once or twice. Yeah, once or twice a season, though.
But they should do that more often.
Well, you've got Barkley now. So
now
you've got speed. If it's one guy to beat on the outside when you pitch it to Barkley because everyone else is stacking up for the tush push, Barkley's going to win that 9 out of 10 times. So they're
thinking, is this a legal move if right at the last second before the snap, if Hurts takes 1 step to the right and they do a direct snap to Barkley, is that a legal play?
Yeah.
Or it is, right?
Yeah.
I would do something like that too. But I'm not a huge fan of the tush push. I'm not a fan of it. Because now they got a guy with Barkley, especially on the goal line. I couldn't stand when they did it on first or second down and they did a tush push. I'm like, give the ball to running back at least once or twice. Now that you got Barkley, they really should do it. Well, he can find the end zone.
It'd be interesting to see how creative they get when they just line up from the So here's the thing. They've got all the success of last year with the tush push, right? So I would love to see them come out aggressively, line up at the tush push, but have a creative play there where they get a deep bomb. Like if you're talking 4th and 1 and we're at like just over the 50 where they don't want to punt it anyways, and they're like, it doesn't matter if we lose it here, but why not just step back? And if you've got Smith,
just put one up for AJ,
Dotson, all these guys, and Barkley as well, like why not? I would not be afraid to throw it on 4th and 1. They have to figure out a way to disguise it well with a tush push type of formation. But they wouldn't.
Got AJ lined up on like a smaller corner, regardless of how good that guy might be. Just throw.
And you don't even have to like throw a big bomb. It's just throw flat out to the sidelines where AJ just gets 2 feet in front of that guy and let him run the next 40. Like there's a lot of stuff I think they could do if they get aggressive by taking the team psychology against the tush push there.
Yeah, agree 100%. So, so I think Hurts. It's weird that their quarterback's the biggest concern off.
The biggest concern, and he's an quarterback.
And Matt and I didn't talk before I hit record. So
neither
one of us knew who was going to be the biggest concern on offense, and we both have Jalen Hurts. Now, this is not to say that we don't think Hurts is going to have a good year, but we're just worried about the stuff we just pointed out. I don't want to see him do this quick roll out to the right all the time. Like it does way too much. And
I don't think there's an Eagles fan in the world that would tell you that they didn't think Hurts regressed at the end of last season.
Oh, he definitely did. Yeah,
definitely did.
Yeah.
So we got to get him back in shape.
And I don't even necessarily blame him. I think the coaching, which was fact check me by going back to my preseason podcast last year. I said my biggest concerns going into last season was not any of the players. It was because they had a brand new offensive coordinator that was inexperienced and a brand new defensive coordinator that was inexperienced. And I thought that there was going to be a factor during the season. They got off to a 10-1 start, and everyone was like, "Oh, everything's great." Kind of do. You saw some warning signs, some red flags when they were 10-1, and then once the team started collapsing, they went through some adversity. They had no answers, no answers at all. They had the same answers, which was horrible. They couldn't beat anybody by the end of the season, as we all know.
No, No,
They
and
didn't beat a
let's
single team. Like I was saying, and I wasn't even kidding. I was telling my friends, they're like, "What's going on with Eagles?" I'm like, "They are the worst team in the NFL right now." I'm like, I would not pick them against anybody. And then they go
yeah,
get thrashed against the Giants. They get thrashed against the Buccaneers, who weren't even a good playoff team themselves. They were non-competitive by the end of the season last year.
totally. Yeah, and you've got, I mean, I think smart football fans over the last several years have recognized the same thing that we have. That is September to October, somewhere in that third week of October or fourth week of October is where the real season begins because everyone else is just in preseason football based on the way it used. So nobody really knows what their team is made of until we get to the end of October, and then the real teams still build momentum and start going forward. So as teams were doing that, here we have the Eagles that just made it to the bye week at 10 weeks with a great record, but then they had to come back and play real football against real football teams that had their stuff together, and it just did not. We were falling apart while everyone else was coming together. And we made the playoffs, but we're like, I don't think any Eagles fan thought that for a second we were going to win that playoff game. But I know we didn't.
Not the way they were playing.
Nope.
No way. No, they just couldn't. Like I said, the end of the season last year, they couldn't beat anybody. I would have taken Carolina over them just because you knew Carolina, at least, even though they were a horrible team, at least had a plan.
That's low. But look,
I swear to God, it would have been a competitive game. Maybe the Eagles still would have eked out a win, but it would have been a close game.
Yeah.
All right. So offense, I think we'll leave it there for that. I think there's more to talk about with defense. So I'll let you lead it off again. So defensively, who are you excited to see? What excites you about this defense? And then we'll talk about concerns.
I'm excited to see the young defensive back group get up to speed as quickly as possible because I think we're going to need that help for the pass rush, right? Without Fletcher Cox to spell, we still don't know what Jordan Davis is going to be, right? We've seen flashes in a pan, and then we've seen him struggle at times, We know Jalen Carter is a stud, and now that he's got a full season under his belt, hopefully he is able to endure the full season. We still have Josh Sweat. We still have BG on the edge, but everybody on that defensive line kind of had a cooling off, and there is no Hassan Reddick, right? So now it's Mike Huff in at the edge, and they're going to probably be playing some sort of 3-4 hybrid defense here with Vic Fangio's scheme, which is going to be heavily reliant on those defensive tackles.
Yep.
Milton still an awesome guy to have on the inside. So I think if Davis, Carter, and Williams can live up to expectations, right? They don't have to be like extraordinarily great, but if they just are good to great, then that will help the edge. But I think those defensive backs, they're going to have to be able to play ball to give our pass rush a little bit of time to get there. It'll be unique. That's why I think it's going to take about 6 weeks into the season to see where we're really at with the defense. So I would encourage all Eagles fans. I don't know what's going to happen for the first 6 weeks. We, like I said, trust the offense.
Week one, it's a good offense to go against.
Yeah, that's an exceptional offense. And if we can just keep 30 points a game on the board or heading towards that area, then that should give us time to grow. But I would not be surprised if the Packers came out and we just couldn't stop them in the first game.
So, I think the Eagles schedule will help the Eagles to the exact points you're making to help them grow into their defense and take those. I mean, not that you can take any team lightly, and you never know how good a team is, but just looking at the schedule on paper, other than the Packers game, they got 2 or 3 games after that they're playing, subpar teams.
Yep. Now, with that being said, though, Vic Fangio, his last 2 stops, Miami Dolphins and Denver Broncos. You didn't hear anything about the Dolphins defense really until Fangio got there. And now you start to hear like they were actually pretty good under his time there. So we'll see what happens. I think he's going to be creative. So I think we're going to see some of these things that longtime Eagles fans have missed since probably Jim Johnson. It's been since Jim Johnson that we went through like Billy Davis and some of these other defensive coordinators that were like, okay, let's see what happens, but no real creativity with blitzes and things like that. And historically, we're used to Bud Carson, Buddy Ryan, even Ray Rhodes as a head coach, he was able to I think Bud Carson was probably his DC, right, under Ray Rhodes. They're able to create stuff with the talent that they have, which
They
was
attacked. A lot of attack.
Exactly. And it was a different philosophy than Gannon. Gannon was absolutely just let's hold them beneath.
Bend but no break.
Right? Let's hold them on.
Like basically, don't start playing real defense till about to get to about the red zone.
Yeah. And so that'll be exciting to see. We definitely we talked about this before. We missed TJ Edwards on the field in that linebacker position last year. So we're all hoping and praying that Trotter Jr., right, can just learn this year and grow and build that frame and be the player his dad was, right? Wouldn't that be awesome? But there's so many parts where it's like, my view of the defense is there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope out there. I love it because I've always been, before Sirianni got here, Fangio was the guy that I wish they would have hired as the head coach anyways. But that's fine. Fangio is the better fit at DC anyway. So now we've got the best of both worlds here. Let's let Vic work his magic. But I think it's going to come down to those defensive tackles setting the tone. Yep. Slay's leadership, BG's leadership to just hold the ship together while we're going through some struggles probably early. And then by the time we hit, I think our bye week is early, isn't it? 5, right? So I'm thinking if we get our stuff together coming out of the bye week, that's where I'm going to pay attention to this defense. What do we have coming into week 6? And how do those pieces and parts go? But I am looking forward to seeing some creativity on defense, unique blitzes, things that put
blitz more. The Eagles haven't blitzed for the last 10 years.
No.
And I've seen the preseason, there's been a lot of blitzing.
Fangio's going to want to put pressure on to make those quarterbacks have to make a decision instead of us hoping that talent wins, right? So that's where I'm excited to see that. But it's going to be some growing pains as these young draft picks really start to just take ownership of the defense. So that's where I'm at. The talent is there, but they're all young. You know, they've made moves to solidify the safety position and the other cornerback spot. It looks like Isaiah Rodgers will probably be starting across from Slay, at least in the beginning. Yep. But then they're talking about how they might move Quentin Mitchell inside and outside at times.
Yeah.
And from all these guys are practicing against AJ Brown every day. So
it's true. They're playing against top guys.
Yep.
So you can't learn by iron sharpens iron, right? Like they say. So but I agree with your points about youthful energy. I mean, this is the youngest defense that I think the Eagles have had since I can remember, position by position. So, you got Slay and you got Graham, but other than that, everyone on his team is young.
Right?
Even Huff, really young, actually, like 25 and younger.
Big free signing Michael Huff from the Jets. He showed that he can get plenty of sacks in another good defense, but can he consistently, over here? I don't know. We hope so. If he hits 10 sacks, I'll be more than happy with it. If he even gets more than 7, I'll be happy with it. So,
well, they're depending on him to replace Reddick. Now, Reddick was more of a 3-down linebacker, and Huff was more of just a specialist 3rd down running, linebacker. So he's got to prove that he can hold up against the run and getting all those more snaps. We'll see. I mean, the verdict's out on that, or the jury's out on that. No verdict. The jury's out on that. Not the verdict.
Here's the biggest change I want to see, right? It seemed like certainly by the end of last season, the last 8 to 10 games, nobody was tackling. It was like, can anybody just tackle? Which was why we missed TJ Edwards so much. So it's like, if these cornerbacks at least watch videotape of Sheldon Brown, not the fastest cornerback, but he was there, but he's not letting you by. One of the most backwards in all-time Eagles history. So tackle. Just tackle the freaking ball carrier, please. That's what I'm looking for.
Ask Reggie Bush how Sheldon Brown tackled.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that one. So I'm now the guys that I'm excited about on defense. You mentioned a lot of them. I want to see Jalen Carter become the all-pro. I want him to be – I've been calling him – and I take credit for this. Now you got more people in the Philly media comparing him or already calling him Jerome Brown. I'm like, he's not Jerome Brown yet. He's not. He just reminded me of Jerome Brown when I saw his college footage. But let's not say he's Jerome Brown right now. He's not. No. He's not that good yet. But he's got the potential to be there, which I said his rookie season. definitely has the ability, but I want to see him. Now it's going to be year 2. I want to see more Jerome Brown out of Jalen Carter. All right. And I think he can do it. I definitely think by the end of this year, you might be seeing more where you can actually call him legitimately. We now have another Jerome Brown. So last year he started off strong and then kind of faded. So I know he's rookie wall and they play a lot of football between college, being drafted and then playing. It's a lot of football. So he's had finally a full off season to just let his body heal. Same with Jordan Davis. So these guys can hopefully have more stamina and be more fresh towards the end of the year. But I want to see Jalen Carter make that next step and become a force. Like Jerome Brown. All right. So we'll see. And Jordan Davis, I've said, is probably the most important. You mentioned it, probably the most important player on the team, because in order for this type of defense, being 3-4, and the fact we got small linebackers to stop the run, the guys up front are going to have to stop the run with, the N'Kobe Deans and the Zach Bonds and these guys. They're only going to support the run. They're not the guys going to be that you want to have taking down guys blowing through the hole, because they're going to drag them another 5 feet or 5 yards. So Jordan Davis has got to be that plug in the middle. And if you get a pass rush and collapse pocket, that's a bonus. But he's got to at least be the guy that you're not running anywhere in the middle of this defense.
Yep.
Because Jordan Davis is there. And let Jalen Carter do his thing. And, Josh Sweat's a pretty good run end. So run, tackling end or run defense end. Obviously Brandon Graham when he's in there, but I don't expect Graham to play too much. He's going to be kind of a spotty guy being his age now. Certainly he's good against the run though. Jordan Davis is the key. And then the linebackers I talked about earlier. I'm excited about N'Kobe Dean finally showing some signs. I really want to see him become the player I think he can be, even as undersized. I think he's capable of that, but I'm still skeptical of it. I want to see a lot more. And obviously want to see Quinlan Mitchell. Is it Quinlan? What's his first name? Quinlan Mitchell. And of course I call him the jack of all trades, a jack in the box player. And that's Cooper DeJean. I think that guy might be the guy that's doing those blitzes.
Well, I think Cooper, yes, and also CJ, right? So the one guy we haven't talked about yet on the defense is having CJ Gardner-Johnson back, who was exceptional before
huge to have him back,
right? And I think that's where having a mastermind like Vic Fangio is going to take advantage of those pieces. So, where's the blitz coming from? Is it going to be Dean? Is it going to be CJ Gardner-Johnson? Is it going to be a cornerback blitz? All these things are now into play.
Kobe, like you've mentioned, has been blitzing a lot.
Yeah. Yep. And they're exciting things to think about now, because it's all right, we have a guy that's the style. And I think Eagles fan, I would rather live and die by that than just being we're going to back off and go ahead and try to beat us. But then we couldn't tackle anybody anyway. So why are you letting them complete it without any pressure? It was just so frustrating. I think those things are going to change. Cooper DeJean hasn't played much, right? So he's been injured most of the camp.
Right.
Who knows?
They're going to be slowly breaking him in. I don't think he'll probably even play much in the first game. He'll probably be in there in certain situations, and they might do that for the first few games because, like you said, he hasn't played much. But I think gradually you'll see more and more Cooper DeJean as the season goes on.
Yeah. My ideal start, if you were to ask me, how do you want to see? What would you love to see within the first 10 minutes of that Packers-Eagles game? Here's what I would love to see. I would love to see a defensive interception. I want to see a defensive interception from one of these cornerbacks or maybe a linebacker covering the tight end or the middle or something like that. But I want to see a defensive interception. And I don't care what they do with it. They don't have to run it back. But
how about a hit and a fumble? Something like that.
Yeah, something that causes the turnover, and it's not an unforced error.
Or sack fumble.
Yeah. That would be amazing. And then that would set the tone. I think it would be very important to set the tone, because that offense is good.
Those things are actually more likely to happen because these starters don't play in the preseason. So game 1, game 2, you've said it many times on my podcast that the season doesn't, I don't know how you word it, you could tell me, but basically your point is that the season doesn't really start till October.
The first
4 weeks.
Yeah, September is preseason. So
September's preseason.
those old traditional stats that pundits like to put out there, like, well, no team has ever started 0-2 and made it to the Super Bowl. I'm like, those are gone. Like, they don't even matter anymore. And if people don't have the wisdom to figure that out, then you haven't been watching football, because nobody is ready for football in September. It's not until October comes around where you really know what you got.
Yeah, 100% agree, especially with the more they keep watering down preseason. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with all those points, and excited to see what Cooper DeJean could do. And obviously, we got one of my favorite players coming back, hopefully week 6, in Sidney Brown. Like, that guy showed some major. Like, that guy's an eagle. Like, he is.
Yeah.
He's
I
like.
keep forgetting about him. I keep forgetting that. Like, oh, we're in pretty good shape, and then you keep mentioning, like, and they got Sidney Brown, and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. He's a play. He proved that he could be a player, right? Before he got injured, he had that like 99-yard.
Oh my God, yeah. I couldn't believe how fast he was when he took off.
Yep.
His speed was like, I mean, he's a hard hitter and aggressive and all that. He's actually a little over aggressive right now as he learns the game. But man, when he caught that, took off and just flew by everybody, I was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Speed. He can turn on the Jets. I mean, his brother's a running back, right? For Cleveland.
For Cincinnati.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, for Cincinnati. He might be starting now, I think, because
they signed Moss.
Running back.
They let Mixon go.
Didn't one of their running backs get hurt like for the season already?
I don't know. I think Zach Moss is healthy. He's the one that
That's going to be the number one. Okay.
He's the bell cow right now, but I think.
Yeah, Brown's pretty good. His brother's a good running back.
Yeah.
Good backup guy.
Actually, have in my fantasy league, not our fantasy league, but in my other fantasy league.
We don't know that yet. Maybe you'll have him after tonight.
Yeah, I might.
Our fantasy draft is tonight for those.
I'm number 2 pick. I know who I'm taking.
You know, this is the second straight year you got the number 2 pick, by the way.
Did I really have the second pick?
Yeah, I checked last year. You had the second pick also.
Last year I didn't really have a good plan for it. This year, I don't think I had number 2 because I was trying to get Kelsey last year. But I know my guy.
I look. You can go back and check the draft from last season. You're the second pick.
Who has the number 1 pick?
Max's wife.
Then I'm going to get my guy. I will get my guy at number 2, and I will be happy because anybody else after that, I don't really care.
Yeah, I mean, I'm drafting in the back of the draft, so man, I drafted late last year too.
Hey, if you got the best spots in the draft are 1 and 2 or 11 and 12. Anything in the middle, I don't like. I don't like being dead in the middle. I don't like 5 through 9, and I'm not a 10 either. That's why I am this year, but 5 through 9. Yeah,
because you always lose out on any runs.
Yep.
If you're in the middle of the draft.
Yep. Whereas if you're 1 and 2 or 11 and 12, you know you're getting your pick out of 4 or 5 guys. Like you can get your guy out of that tier. Yeah.
Yeah. The advantage also of being either in the beginning or the end is you can start the runs with one of your picks.
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh man, here they go. Here go the tight ends.
Dude,
whatever.
I almost sent you my mock draft from yesterday, drafting at the 2 spot, but I'm like, no, it gives away too many details about where I'm going. But if I could just
CBS Sportsline,
huh?
Did you do it on the website? CBS.
Yeah. And it's never accurate to our league because our league is full of guys that know their football. So, but the roster I ended up with, I'd be like, dude, I'll share it with you. I'll share it with you
afterwards after the match.
Yeah. I'll be like, I want to trade for these guys. Yeah, it was that good. But
so you don't have to worry about being near Dexheimer this season. But
you and Johnny Flowers and Dex are all stacked up.
Flowers is right there.
Have fun. Have fun with that. Yep. I'm surrounded by people that don't know me up the top. I'm like, I'm gonna get all my players. Yeah. I won't be the one that's driving that clock down to 1 second before I pick. That'll be you, Johnny, and Dex, because you'd be like, what the hell? My plan's blown up. Guy I wanted just went. Yeah.
Although Dad has got the propensity to snap
that's smart
targeting. And he's right after you. Or before you coming back. So you might have to do that every once in a while.
We'll have to do a fantasy draft show. We'll have Dad on as a guest somewhere in the future. Yeah.
We'll do that.
So I don't mean to bring us down a fantasy draft tangent, but I know my guy. And I won't say anything else until next show.
Well, all right. So how about concerns on the defense?
So the concern is
I think you kind of mentioned it, saying that
yeah, the
that they're
concern
not going to completely gel until maybe, halfway point of the season.
Yeah,
Which could cost them some games early on.
It'll cost them some games early on, but again, I've said Vic Fangio's name probably 20 times already, and people are probably sick of hearing that. But I'm like, but he's been good everywhere he's gone. Yeah. So just deal with the mistakes early. We might lose some games early, but really looking at late October to see where this team is at and defensively. And what you want to see when you're waiting for that to happen is just a couple of splash plays here and there. Maybe the whole thing's not clicking yet, but just a couple of splash plays, Yeah.
Turnovers are always key. And Eagles, outside of the Super Bowl year, again, they haven't been a big turnover team in the last several seasons. I mean, Reed Blankenship, I think, for 2 straight years has led the Eagles to turnovers. And it's like with 4. It's not right. A lot.
He is not a fast safety. I don't know. He's smart and he moves.
He lures quarterbacks in. He's good at luring quarterbacks. And he makes and the thing is, when he has a chance to make the pick, he doesn't drop it. Like, he's got good hands.
Yep. And he's a sure tackler too, which what I'm looking at for the defense concern wise is, man, just they, like I said, the offense should be buying them a lot of time. And when we get into the third quarter and fourth quarter of games, like even if we get up by 2 touchdowns with this offense, just run here's our problem, right? With the offense, it's always been, and Eagles fans all over will tell you this the last 5 to 10 years. Can you just run the ball? When we get up by 2 touchdowns, why are we still throwing? Run the ball behind Landon Dickerson and Jordan Mailata and just move people out of the way. And with Barkley, you could possibly score on any of those runs. So just run
before I forget.
Let the clock be the defense's friend. I think
that's my too much Andy Reid-itis.
Right. I think my biggest concern is the offensive game plan not being designed around helping the defense, right? When you get up by scores,
run the clock.
Just run that clock down. Let these guys make plays. Put all the pressure on that other team so that we can start gelling as the defense. That's probably my biggest concern is kind of like the game management part of it. Because you got to give these guys room to grow. They've got a good coach. They've got a good system in place. As excited as I am for the Eagles offense to be able to be unstoppable, the defense just needs – I have a little concern about, well, that's my hope as an Eagles fan is that they grow together, but we'll need to see it. If it ain't gelling by the end of October, then we're probably going to be in a little trouble.
Yeah, if it ain't gelling yet, and especially, which is my number one concern that I'm going to get to now on defense, is the pass rush. Like, for the first time, like, in a while, like, I'm concerned about the Eagles getting to the quarterback. And because I just think there's a lot more question marks this year. There's no Fletcher Cox. Brandon Graham's on his last year. No more Reddick. Reddick is gone, who was almost guaranteed to get in there. So that's why I said Jalen Carter's going to be key. We got to get the push up the middle so that those guys on the outside got a shot. Now, the one thing that might help is we have better corners that we've had for, we finally have really good corners back there.
Yep.
They're young, but they're good. So maybe that gives the guys an extra second or two to get to the quarterback. But that's my biggest concern. Right now, I'm very wary of how good this pass rush is going to be. You got Huff. Again, talk about the concerns with him. He's only a third down specialist. Can he now be a full-time guy and be that sack artist? Because, if we're towards the middle of the season and these things aren't clicking, and if Hassan Reddick is still unsigned by the Jets,
bring him back.
I'm wondering if Howie will be like, hey, Joe Douglas, you're still having problems with Reddick. What do you need for him?
Yep.
Because he'll be willing to pay at that point if that's a major flaw on our team that we're just not getting to the quarterback. Because the Eagles pride themselves. We've always prided ourselves in getting a quarterback. So that doesn't happen this season.
No, like I said, I think the getting to the quarterback is going to come from the creativity on defense with exotic blitzes. That's where it's going to
could be. Yeah, maybe that's why they're blitzing more. So what was else? It was just something else I'm going to talk about. Oh, you mentioned the running game. When you started talking about the running game, I was like, yeah, we know about Barkley, and we're all excited to see him finally play. I mean, this is a guy that's been the focal point of the horrible Giants team, and he still puts up great numbers. Now he's been injury prone. We know that. We understand that. No Eagle fan thinks this guy may not get injured here or there during the season. We just hope it's not anything long term. But he's going to be behind one of the best lines in the league. Totally not a focal point because you paid too much attention to him. How many? I mean, you got ample weapons all around him.
Yeah.
So he could have a monster season.
Yeah. I think that's why Howie spent the money. I think Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni were like, hey, we know you don't usually go for the running back.
They never spend money on running backs.
No,
that's why I was like, one of the things I was wrong about in our podcast. I said, there's no way Barkley's going to be an Eagle.
Yeah, we both said.
Totally wrong. I'm not wrong often, but I was wrong about that one.
That one was a surprise, but I think that's Kellen Moore's influence saying, hey, we can have a good offense with what we got here, but we can have an unstoppable offense if you go get Barkley because I know how to use him and his pass catching ability. He's
a legit 3-down back.
Yep. And they still got Gainwell and the rookie they drafted, Will Shipley. That guy looks like a player too.
That's the guy I wanted to bring it up when you were talking about I was talking about Barkley just for a second, but Shipley has really impressed me. And that's another guy that, again, listen, if I'm wrong about some predictions or whatever, and I didn't predict about this guy, but I thought that there was other more talented running backs on the board when the Eagles took Shipley. And I'm a Clemson. I like Clemson. I kind of like that college program. But I didn't see much on the tape that I watched about Shipley. I was not excited about him, especially with some of the backs that were still on the board that I thought would be better fits. But this guy's been wicked impressive. He catches everything. I haven't seen him drop a ball. He's got way more power than I thought. You look at this guy, he looks like a kid that just pulled off the street. Like, he doesn't even look like a football player. But his physical power that he's got really surprised me more than anything else. Like, he runs hard.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he's a fast guy, but he seems to be.
He's not fast, but he runs with some power. Like, you need to really wrap him up to get him down. Like, I'm surprised by that. So I'm happy what I've seen from Shipley is basically what I'm saying. Like, I'm glad they grabbed that guy because his hands are good.
I think they're all going to get a decent amount of playing time too, right? Because they don't want to burn out Barkley. I think they'll be going through this season making sure Barkley is absolutely healthy for the playoffs is what they're going to be thinking. But those other two guys, man, we know Gainwell can catch.
Right.
And, Shipley's
Gainwell's put out some beef too. Like, this is not the same Gainwell they drafted. Like, he's put on like 25 pounds of muscle.
Yeah.
Like, he's not, I don't know if you've seen him yet, much of him, but he's got himself jacked up.
Yeah. So I really do think the offense has a chance to be unstoppable, right? So
it definitely does. And again, it gets that Hurts. Like, if we see Hurts take that step again and go back to kind of the things he was doing back in 17, when he was really not 17, 2022, right? Well, the last time they went to Super Bowl run.
Yeah.
If we see that Jalen again, who was reading defenses, not running out of pocket and scrambling and, anxiously out of the pocket and hangs in there, you mentioned it. We've seen him do it for long periods. We know the ability Hurts has, and he just needs to go back to that. And maybe Kellen Moore is able to bring that back out of him again, because you want to talk about unstoppable. And I've always said this, like, again, the idiots, one thing you'll learn now that we're launching on YouTube is that I love to call out the McNabb haters. And I'll do that. If anyone wants to come in here and start trashing McNabb, you're welcome, but you're gonna hear it. You're gonna hear it back. But McNabb, could you imagine? We talked about how he had hardly any weapons his whole career. Could you imagine Donovan McNabb in this?
What are you talking about? Yeah, James Thrash.
I say that now. They're like, oh, he'll just puke in it. They love to just go back to the puking in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Whatever, dude. It's the most lamest comment ever. But whatever, dude. It just tells me they have no football aptitude whatsoever.
No.
But anyone with a football brain, think of Donovan McNabb in this offense.
Be insane. The deep ball that Donovan, everyone was sick of Donovan making those 8-yard throws that ended up at the feet. But you don't understand how quarterback has played, right? Like if he's going to throw, but then he has the thought, like, I'm not going to complete this, just throw it in the dirt. It's not intercepted, right? He's got a historically low interception ratio, right? So he's not going to make the play that's going to make your team lose.
Right.
And the boy can throw the deep ball on the freaking money. With James Thrash, he's not even throwing it to good guys like T.O. for more than a year. He's putting it into James Thrash, who's got 3 guys on him.
And Freddie Mitchell and
these guys, McNabb's consistently always going to be.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, he also didn't just keep running out to the right side of the pocket. Like, when he took off when you should take off for the most part. He never really had a long periods of happy feet. He kind of always took a lot of hits. He'd hang in there and take freaking hits. So you get crushed.
Yeah,
and you get the ball off
before you scramble.
But man, you just think of somebody like that in his offense. I'm like, oh my god! Like McNabb has to, he has to be thinking, what the hell? I played 5 of my prime years with absolute garbage. And now this team has got more weapons upon weapons.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Jackson. One year with Deshaun Jackson as a rookie, and 1 year
rookie. And he had T.O. for a year and a quarter because T.O. ended up being a douchebag. But other than that, it was all James Thrash, and Hank Baskett, and Torrance Small, and
Charles Johnson, Nay Brown,
Todd Pinkston. Just absolute. Nobody would ever be starting on any other team. Is what the point I always made. Like, none of these guys are starting wide receivers on any team in the NFL.
No.
And this is who McNabb's working with. Oh, man. But
hurts for offense.
Yeah, hurts for offense. So, all right. So, here's the deal. We can either cut this show now and then talk about the Packers game later this week.
We're at a minute, hour 21, so we're a little long right now.
Where are we? Yeah, hour 21. Yeah. So we're gonna probably. I guess we could probably. I mean, what are your early thoughts about the game? Let me say this before we get into the actual game. I'm not a fan, and this is where we might differ. Listen, Matt and I are going to agree on a lot of things, but when we disagree, we're going to have open disagreements, debates. That's going to be the other cool thing about this podcast. And I think this might be something we don't have to share the same view on, but we'll see. I can't stand these international games. I can't stand them. If you want to have the occasional one in London, fine. But I fucking can't stand that our Eagles are going to freaking Brazil. I don't care what time of the year. And this is the thing. It has nothing to do with the Eagles. I can't stand any international game at all. If it's the Dolphins versus the Steelers and they're playing in wherever, can't stand it. Can't stand it. If you guys love the NFL so much, get your own damn league. Now, that being said, you're hearing about, I don't know if you've heard about what's going on in Brazil right now. They got like wildfires, like the whole place is like burning down.
I did catch that today. Yeah, so I did catch that. I was like, game might be canceled. I'm like, what? And I'm like, for what? Gangs or something? Because I know that they can't wear.
There's a gang problem too, where the Eagles were concerned about wearing green down there.
Yep.
And nobody Green Bay too, and they wear green.
It's got to be bad, the situation, because most of the players have said, like, yeah, I don't really expect to actually leave the hotel. Like, they're like, well, what rules were you bound by? And they're like, well, I think I'm just gonna be playing like Call of Duty at my hotel until it's game time. So it's like, I don't know what this political situation is in Brazil or what the crime factors are, but clearly it's enough to have NFL policy dictate to these players, here's all the ways that you could die on this trip.
They give them lists of things they cannot do.
Right. So I'm kind of like, okay, that's probably not the best city to choose. At the same time, as you were saying, and I totally agree with you, I don't like these games either. I don't like them. You can grow the international market through your TV programs and then let them buy tickets and
fly to go travel.
Yep. I hate the fact that you lose the home game. Whatever team's playing away, they lose the game advantage. And the other thing is, though, at the same time, the counterpoint would be, and I'm going to quote Tommy Boy here, like Big Tom Callahan says, like the Brian Dennehy character of Tommy Boy would say, there's only 2 directions. You're moving forward or you're going reverse. There ain't no third direction, right? So if you're the NFL, you're just looking to keep growing this big pile of money
because they don't make enough money as it is.
Because they don't make enough money as it is, and they're, they've done a great job by being inclusive from people of all walks of life, culturally and just all sorts.
Yeah.
They great job with.
I'm not. Listen, that's great, but
the travel and the destinations. I'm like, it's hard enough for us to buy a ticket to go to a game here because of the way that Ticketmaster works now and how bots get all the tickets, and you can only get them through resale, and you're paying 6 times the price to even go, right? So
and now we're losing a home game this year.
Yeah, and if I'm going to go to London or one of these destinations, I don't want to be going to a football game. I want to go check out the city, and the culture, and the other things that are there. I don't want to watch football. I can watch that game. And you want to know what really pisses me off about it? It's the fact that I'm not sure I'm going to be able to watch that game because I don't have the Peacock app, and I haven't signed up for.
So you're gonna have to sign up for the free period or whatever.
Well, I already did that last year, so I can't do it.
Oh,
so I'm pissed off at the fact that I paid.
They're not showing that on NBC at all. It's just Peacock.
I think it's Peacock only.
Right,
I might be wrong because it's the opening week.
I think you're right. I think it is exclusive to Peacock. I think you might be right about that.
Yeah, so I'm really pissed off that I had to spend.
Yeah, it's the NFL trying to squeeze money.
Right.
But that's just a total money move.
Yeah, and the whole streaming thing is another issue. Like I forked over a whole bunch of money for NFL Sunday Ticket again, and I'm like, and here it is. I can't even watch the home opener on the money I already paid.
You just can't watch it live, right?
Yeah, I'll watch
Sunday Ticket. I think you could go replay it afterwards.
Yeah,
right?
maybe. Yeah, only spent $350.
You want to watch that live, especially the first game of the season.
Not a fan of the big international games.
Well, you may want to just sign up for Peacock for a month and then cancel it.
Yeah, I don't even want to give the NFL the.
I hear you, but so you're not going to watch the game? Are you going to go over to someone's house? It's got Peacock.
It depends if somebody in the neighborhood has it, but I'm just, there's certain lines in the sand that I'll draw, and this is one of them. I'm like, I'll watch the highlights, I guess.
I think it might be only like $5 though for the month.
Yeah, even then, I just don't like the whole practice of it. Like, where are we going? Like,
I hear you, man.
If you're going down,
I got rid of Sunday Ticket. I got sick of paying them, so right. I haven't got Sunday. I used to get every year. I used to get that way back in the day. I got it every year, and when I got ticked off because I kept raising it every single season, I got on the horn with them a couple times and complained, and I told them I was going to cancel it, and they'd give me some, they'd cut it in half, and I'd say, okay, if you cut it in half, I'll stick with you. Eventually cut the cord. So I hear you 1,000% on that. I happen to still subscribe to Peacock, so I'll be able to watch it. If there's a way I can share that with you, I will. I don't know if it'll let 2 people come on, but
if you're going to go streaming and these streaming services want to make money off the NFL, here's my pitch. I hope to God somebody's listening. Group them up. If Amazon wants football games, let them come to the table. If Peacock wants football games, let them come to the table. But divvy up the teams. So if you told me Eagles were available through Amazon, I will sign up for Amazon. Absolutely 100%. If you told me they're on Peacock, I will sign up 100%. And then you've got good teams and teams that aren't expected to win much, right? So you'd have to package some of these teams together with the streaming services to kind of balance it out. But I would do that. I'd be happy to pay for a streaming service to watch my Eagles, but that, like, all the fans are screaming for that, and it seems like the NFL will not.
There's got to be a reason why they don't do it. Probably because they're not going to make enough money.
At some point, they'll lose some money, and it's like, well, that's why I'm not going to pay them a dime to watch some international game.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I give you credit for being that principled to do that. I would probably, if I was in your shoes, my willpower would break down, and I would pay for a month for $5 or whatever and cut it afterwards.
Hey, I'll read one of our most trusted sources. I'll read Rube's observations from the game, and I'll be able to know what happened.
Yeah, and they do a pretty good job. There's like a YouTube channel, it might be the NFL Networks or whatever. That always does like a pretty good 10 minutes of the highlights or whatever. It gives you a good idea of how the game went. But this one, if there's ever again the miss, this one being in freaking Brazil is back to my original point where I cannot stand these international games. Can't stand them. And that's across the board, not just because the Eagles are in it this year.
No, so here's the good thing about
even if the Eagles were not in the game. I can't stand these games. I don't like our NFL teams having to travel. I think it's a huge disadvantage for both teams.
So since September is preseason, like we said, that's the only thing that makes me okay with it is at least ours is game one. It's not happening.
That is true. Yeah, I did say that. Yeah. At least we're getting it right out of the way, not in the middle of the season or end of the season. That is true. That's the only, if there's any silver lining, that's it. Is just get it out of the way, first game of the season. They're not in the middle of games, but still.
Yep.
None of the players, by the way, I don't know if you've seen in their interviews.
None of them
you can tell these guys can't stand this game. You could every single one of them.
Yeah, because
they don't want to go either.
They're like, don't leave campus, don't leave the hotel because we can't. You're safe. So like,
they can't even enjoy the trip to the country.
Yeah, it's not like they're bringing their families. They're not going to bring them into a bad situation. So we're at an hour and a half now. So maybe we save the Packers and Eagles.
Yeah, what I'll do is just for the listeners here, I'm going to be consistent every week so that you guys know when the live stream will happen. So I'll be posting that on the community page. Probably going to kind of try to keep it as at least I'll do one live stream a week. We'll do other recordings probably throughout the week. When I say we, more than likely it'll just be myself. I mean, the show is Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff. As we progress, and if Matt becomes more, on here more and more often, I may have to change the name of the show. But
hey, my retirement plan is still about 10 years away. So
all right, so we got plenty of time to work that in. But Matt will be on here as often as we can get him. And like I said, I'm going to have other guests, especially when we play as NFC's teams. I already have them lined up. So, and even other teams, that I like to just bring on an opposing fan. Again, it's all about being fans. I'm not bringing on any football experts. I'm just bringing on other diehard fans of other teams. And so you can learn a little bit about them and get some insight on what their teams are doing prior to them playing Eagles. So that's the deal there. Trying to think what else before I forget here. So yeah, we'll do an Eagles Packers preview probably Wednesday. I'll post it. It may be a live stream, may not be a live stream, but either way, it might probably be easier to do a live stream because that way Matt, if he has a limited time, he can just jump on. So probably will be a live stream on Wednesday. Probably between the 5 and 6 o'clock time frame. So for those of you listening or listening and watching later, look out for that. And we'll talk about, we'll do a deep dive into the Packers game and talk about the keys to victory and all those kind of fun things we always talk about. So this might be, I think we'll wrap it up here. I want to, of course, Matt, thank you for jumping on. This is the inaugural live stream. This is the inaugural YouTube launch that I've been talking about forever. So now we're going to start a new streak. So this is actually episode 205 overall, and the first on YouTube. So like I said, there's well-established lineage of Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff podcasts that are linked to YouTube. I think the last 20 or so on YouTube, and the rest of them you can find on any podcast platform under the same name. So if you want to really go back and do a deep dive in the program. Not suggesting you do that, just saying it's out there. Matt, any closing thoughts before we sign off?
No, other than thanks for hanging with us for the full hour and a half. We had to get intros in there today, which kind of extends the program show. But of course, every minute you guys may have spent with us listening or are going to spend with us listening, we appreciate that. We can't wait to get comment chains going and some live interactions going with the show too, because we want to hear what the other fans have to say, But I think everybody in Eagles Nation is eager to see this season begin. I think there's a lot of hope and recovery from last year. The sky's the limit once again. I think everyone expects our team to be highly competitive and decent shot at the Super Bowl. That's where I stand. It's just watching how these pieces come together like it is every year, and fly, Eagles fly.
Absolutely. So not much more to say about that other than just to, of course, subscribe to the channel. And I know many of you haven't yet because I see the numbers. So make sure you subscribe, throw a thumbs up. You can do that too, because that obviously is going to help build the channel. This is all about really grassroots building now, starting all over again. So, make sure you do that. Hopefully you enjoy the content. And like Matt said, and really what's the whole key goal for me is that whole right side chat box that's empty right now will be a day, hopefully sooner than later, where we're going to be engaging with you, talking to you, interacting with you on that right side of the screen. So, and talking about what you guys are bringing to the table. So that's when the real fun begins. That's a quote from.
I have no idea.
This is when the fun begins. Star Wars, man.
This is where the fun begins. Oh, but that's prequel stuff.
Yeah, but it's still Star Wars.
Yeah, but
so you were thinking the original
stuff.
All right, I put Matt in a spot there, but I thought that was going to be a layup for you.
No.
Anyway, that will be when the fun begins, when we have you guys engaging with us on here. So until next time, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future content. Like and comment, because you guys will have the ability to even comment when you guys watch this podcast later. So let me know your thoughts. And until next time, Matt, thanks again for joining the podcast. We'll see you back on Wednesday. See everybody back here on Wednesday. And thanks again for tuning into the first inaugural launch on YouTube, Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff, and go Birds, baby. Enjoy.